Inventory. One of the most useful and probably one of the most popular features of SMS 2003 is its ability to collect software and hardware inventory data from your managed clients. Inventory data can include things like what type of software you have installed, what hot fixes have been deployed, as well as hardware information detailing the CPU speed, amount of memory that the client has, how much hard disk space, and so on. And it should probably go without saying, this information is useful for a variety of reasons, from software licensing through to, do my clients have the right hardware requirements to install new software? So we'll start by taking a look at the hardware inventory first. So in our SMS console, we'll come up here to the left-hand side, we'll expand our site database, we'll expand our site hierarchy, and then we'll expand our site, followed by our site settings, and then we'll select the client agents option. Now in the right-hand side of our console, we can see all of the inventory options we have. Now at this stage, we're concerned with collecting hardware inventory from our clients, so we'll right-click on the hardware inventory client agent and we'll select properties. Now the first thing we'll need to do is to enable hardware inventory for our clients by checking this box and then defining how often we want to check our clients for inventory updates. Now we can choose from a simple schedule or a full schedule. With a simple schedule, we don't have many options. We can only select to schedule every hour, every day, or every week, although we can certainly change this time if we like. When we select a full schedule, this makes the schedule button available where we can set different options, such as which days of the week we'd like to run our inventory collection or specific days of the month. Now a simple schedule is likely to be the most widely used option, as it ordinarily causes less network traffic since each client forwards its inventory data based on its own time, rather than with a full schedule where all clients run their inventory at the same time. Alright, so I'll leave the default here, which is a simple schedule, and for the purposes of my lab here, I'll leave the schedule here to run every single hour. Now at the bottom here, we can see the maximum custom MIF, or Management Information Format file, is set to 250 kilobytes, and we can change that if we like from as little as 1 kilobyte through to 5,000. Now do bear in mind that when you do run a default inventory collection, it will collect around 200 kilobytes of data. So take that into consideration if you decide to change this value. On the MIF collection tab, we can choose whether we want to collect the ID MIF and no ID MIF files from our legacy or advanced clients as well. Now the ID MIF files are used to create new architectures and object classes, whereas the no ID MIF files are used to modify or append existing object classes. Now an in-depth discussion of our ID and no ID MIF files are out of scope for this video, but if you do want to find out more about these files, then check out the SMS 2003 Operations Guide, and you should find more about what you're looking for there. Alright, well, we'll leave the defaults here and we'll click OK, and we've now configured our hardware inventory. So let's set up a software inventory as well while we're here. So we'll right click on Software Inventory Client Agent and we'll select Properties. And as before, we'll need to enable the software inventory on our clients. Now the rest of the options are the same as we saw for the hardware inventory. So I'm going to leave our schedule here for 1 hour for the purposes of our lab. And now we'll click on the Inventory Collection tab. And here is where we can define what sort of file extensions we'll look for when our software inventory runs. Now we can see here that the default is to look for executable files, but if we click on the yellow star icon, we can add in our own. So say for argument's sake, we want to also see if our clients are having VB script files. We could simply type in *.vbs. Now the default is to search all client hard disks and to search subdirectories and include encrypted and compressed files in our search. But if we click on the Set button, we could also specify a specific path to search if we don't want to scan every single hard disk on the client. Alright, well, we'll click on OK, and there we can see our new search for scripts has been added. Now on the next tab, the File Collection tab, we could also specify files that we want to copy from the client to the site server. Now this can be useful if you have a log file that you want SMS to collect from the client. So to add a file to collect, simply click on the yellow star icon, and you can either specify a wildcard like before, or click on the Set button, and you can define a path to a specific file or directory. Now down the bottom here you can see that the maximum file size we'll allow SMS to collect is 128K, but you can certainly change that if you like. Okay, well our final tab here is the Inventory Names tab, and the main purpose of this tab is to provide a single display name for all of the various names for the manufacturer of a product. You see, in our list of inventory names here, we've got a bunch of variations on the company name of Microsoft. So we have Microsoft Corp, we have Microsoft Corporation, Microsoft by itself, and so on. Now when developers create their products, over time, the name of the company can be presented in different ways using these type of differences that you see here. Now when SMS finds the software, it will sort them by the name, and that can make locating it a little bit difficult. So what we're really doing here is simply grouping any bit of software using any of these names under this one simple display name. Now if you find that your software doesn't appear here, which is likely since only Microsoft is listed, clicking on the yellow star icon simply allows you to type in your own names. Alright, well we'll click on OK, and we've now configured our software inventory. Okay, well here I am on my Windows XP client, so if we go and click on Start and open up the control panel, and we double click on the Systems Management option, on the Components tab, we should be able to see our SMS Inventory Agent. The status has now changed to Enabled. And on the Actions tab, we can see that we now have a Hardware Inventory Cycle and a Software Inventory Cycle option. Alright, well here we are back on our SMS server, so let's go and see if we have any data collected from our Windows XP client. So in our SMS console here, we'll come over to the left hand side and we'll expand Collections, and we'll select All Systems. Now on the right hand side here, we'll simply just locate the computer that you wish to find out more information about, and in my case that's XP Client 01. So we'll right click that, we'll select All Tasks, and then we'll start the Resource Explorer. Okay, well this opens up the Resource Explorer for the SMS client. Now we have options here for our hardware and our software. So on the left hand side here we'll select Hardware, and in the right hand side we can see all of the hardware devices you'd expect to see in a typical computer. So if we double click on one of them, let's say disk drives here, we can see the drives that our target client has. So here we can see that XP Client 01 has a single disk drive. Over here we can see it's an IDE drive, and if we scroll a little bit further over, we can also see the size of the drive and other details. Now our second option here is the hardware history, and in my case it shouldn't really show anything as we've only had time for a single inventory scan to occur, but this will show us any changes to our hardware that occur over time. Now we'll expand our final option, which is software, and we have four options here: collected files, file details, the last software scan, and product details. Now collected files will display any files that the software inventory collected as part of its scan, but as we didn't tell SMS to collect any files, ours should be empty over here. But if you do tell SMS to collect files from the client, you'll see those files listed here. Now next we have file details, and in this window you'll see all of the files that the SMS software inventory scan found on the client that match the file types you specified. So in here you'd see a whole lot of executable files by default, and if you recall when we configured ours, we had VB script files we were looking for as well. So once our software scan runs, you'll see those files listed here. Now the last software scan simply shows us when the last software scan ran on this client, and this can be used for when you want to check, see if your scan is up to date. And finally we have product details, and this pops up the product types or manufacturers of the software that we have installed on our client. Okay, in this video we've seen how to enable hardware and software inventory scans for our SMS clients. In the coming videos we're going to use our inventory scans to run reports and determine which clients meet certain requirements to be able to install software.